Greetings, scholars, and welcome back to our study of Pokemon Blue. Since last time, I decided to go through and... let's see, where should I start here? Decided to go through, grind everyone to level 20. And that doesn't just include Pokemon in my team, but also everything in the Pokemon storage system. Oh, of course. Of course I can't withdraw. Put away Pidgeotto. That's the one. Okay, withdraw. Everyone except Abra and Magikarp, because I just want to wait till wild Pokemon at higher levels for them. Everything up to level 20, so that I can more easily compare and make educated choices, and also you fill out the Pokedex a little bit more. Most notably, I wanted to look at how stats compare and what moves they learn through level up. And I would say the one that I had the hardest time training was Paris, because it didn't learn any moves until level 20. So all it had was Scratch. I feel like I should have had a harder time with Jigglypuff, but I think because it had Stab with Pound, it worked out fine. So, the last thing, it got Leech Life, which even then, it's not a terribly powerful move. And I can imagine that anyone who just picks up Paris would just be like, I don't want to use this Pokemon because it's not... it's just not fighting very hard. It's not the strongest. That said, its stats are decent for having not evolved. Let's see, one more time. 36, 32, 21. Obviously, speed is really low, but everything else, a little bit above 30, even attack, which is 36. And if I go to Ivysaur? Yeah. No, not too much further than a middle evolution, and that's saying something, because Ivysaur is a starter Pokemon. He's got to be one of the best that you have, if not the best. So, despite his stats being decent, he just didn't have any moves that were worth really calling home about, I guess. But I can imagine once he gets to higher levels, he'll have something worthwhile. Nidorina. Well, I want to compare her stats to Nidorino. All mid-30s except special, which I'm actually surprised by. I thought her special was a little higher, but whatever. Stats are, moves are pretty much the same, but instead of having Horn Attack, she has Scratch. Very similar, but that one difference I would imagine would make most people go towards Nidorino. Yeah, his attack is a little bit higher, like I think 4 points, but everything else is lower. Yeah. Oh, Leer instead of Growl. Huge difference there. Pivotal in your Pokemon decision-making. Beedrill was sweet. He was real useful during training. Oh wow, he has like no defense. Attack and speed are really good though, and his special is surprisingly high. I don't think he has any special moves though. He's a bug poison type. I unfortunately, while I was speeding through all of this training, got rid of his Poison Sting, which I don't think is a huge shame, but I don't know if he learns any other poison moves. So that's a thing. However, Twin Needle should be really useful against very particular Pokemon. And I might actually end up using Beedrill for those situations. Most notably, I think, Erica's gym? Yeah, his attack and speed are both above 40. So that's interesting. Let's see, who's my, like, speed and... Well, let's look at Butterfree anyway. Yeah, okay. So, they kind of swap their special and their attack here. Butterfree has quite a bit more defense than Beedrill does. And the moveset is just completely different. One's a power... just all power moves, and the other one's status moves. Yeah, I wish I could have gotten rid of String Shot instead of Poison Point, but what are you gonna do? Fearow. I was impressed with Fearow. Yeah. Oh, that speed, that is the highest speed. I mean, he's a final evolution, one of the few that I have at this point, other than the bugs. And so it makes sense that his stats are that good, but I was just astounded with how powerful Peck was even before he evolved, because he evolved at level 20. So I was using Spearow up through like the entirety of his training, and Peck just carried him through the whole time. And now that I'm looking at the stats, that makes sense. Even if it was like 5 less at level 19, it's still... That's substantial. That's stronger than my Ivysaur. Oh, Raticate. Yeah, unfortunately, I had to train Raticate just to be consistent. But again, his stats, huge, huge attack, huge speed. Even his defense and special aren't bad. And then Hyper Fang is just a real kick in the head, right? Hyper Fang, I think it's like, I don't think it's a huge move by endgame, but this early on, having Hyper Fang, I think it's like a base 70, base 80 move. It's powerful. And having Quick Attack on top of that, it just... Raticate's got a lot of power behind him. Jigglypuff I wasn't super impressed by. She started out with only Sing. I think she was level 3 or 5. I don't remember which. When those stats are sad. But I think she's more supposed to be a utility Pokemon with Disable and Sing. I wouldn't use her. I could see somebody else doing it, but... I am curious to see where Clefairy was in comparison, but I don't have access to Clefairy at the moment. All I have is Clefable, who I'm assuming is just... Yeah, no, that's comparable to like every other Pokemon I've been looking at, everyone that's evolved so far. Jigglypuff is nowhere near that. But sometimes the evolution just changes your stats that much. Zubat was really useful because he has Leech Life. Oh yeah, all he really has going for him is speed here. But he also hasn't evolved yet. And Bite was really powerful. Bite's not a dark attack in this game. There are no dark attacks. There's no dark type. So it is just a normal type attack, but it does a lot of damage. That's another thing that ended up making Gyarados kind of useless in the next generation, because he had Bite, and that was like one of his strongest moves in this game. And they changed it to a special type. And now, then he just became a sad boy with a big mouth. He could bite hard, but not well. But yeah, Leech Life, because Bellsprout is a grass poison type, so bug type is ×4 weakness, so he just ran through those Bellsprouts. It was kind of sad. Surprised he didn't evolve. I remember him evolving fairly early, but I guess not. Oh, then we had Bellsprout. Jeez, not even evolved, and his attack is one of the highest I have. Not to mention his special is just underneath it. Higher than Ivysaur's, isn't it? I think it's their special match, but I think his attack, Bellsprout's attack is higher. Which his only physical move is Wrap right now. I don't know if he learns anything else. Basically has all the same moves as Ivysaur, except Ivysaur doesn't have growth yet, and he doesn't get Wrap. I think that's it. Oh, Sandshrew, Geodude, Pidgeotto. Oh wow, I didn't realize that Sandshew's attack and defense was so high. It's kind of impressive. Special is abysmal, but I don't need it, so it's fine. Yeah, he had Scratch for most of his training, but then when he learned Slash, he was just ripping through everything. I ended up training him on, what, Route 4? Just so that he wasn't running into Bellsprout, because that was a scary fight for him. Him and Geodude. Slash is very strong. It has the heightened critical hit ratio. It's great, especially for this early on in the game. I was very impressed with Sandshrew once I got to that point. And Geodude. Oh wow. Pretty similar stats as Sandshrew, but he has the ×4 weakness against both water and grass, so it's hard to really say, yeah, use Geodude. But he did learn Rock Throw, which is one of the few Pokemon that has Stab at this point in the game. Which is kind of weird to say that, because most Pokemon in later generations, their first move or their second move is going to be Stab. And yes, seeing so many Pokemon get to level 20 and not have a Stab move in this generation is... oh, that's just a little strange. Pidgeotto, not Pidgeotto's final evolution. So there is room to grow, but compared to Fearow, Pidgeotto doesn't even hold a torch. The only good stat we have here is speed, and sure, Stab Quick Attack is nice, but Raticate does that even better. It's hard to say. I feel like Pidgeotto is not as good as Fearow. I prefer its design, but I think everything else I just have to hand to Fearow. So that's actually going to be my switch here. I'm going to go for Fearow instead of Pidgeotto. This team isn't final, of course. I'm going to be changing it throughout the series. I just wanted to look at what Pokemon have learned. What their stats are, how they all compare to each other. This is the first gym that the type really matters. Like against Brock, you're almost always going to be not very effective unless you level up Ivysaur, Bulbasaur, or Squirtle to a point where they learn their Stab move. But other than that, Misty's the first time that you're actually seeing they're going to be using a super effective attack. It's not just a normal type move. So you do actually have to start worrying about type effectiveness at this point. And the only types that got moves were grass types and electric types. And I guess the one rock type. So we have... Alright, that's not true, but you know. There's not a ton of variety of move types this early in the game. I don't feel like there generally is, even nowadays. You generally start with a bunch of Pokemon that just have normal type moves, maybe a few bug type moves, whatever. It's no big deal. And it really doesn't make the game harder or easier one way. Harder having the having no variety of moves this early on, because the game is fairly easy. All this training isn't necessary. It's Misty's not the hard gym leader. She's not a pushover either by any means, but it's not something you need to fear. No. I ain't nothing. Well, I wanted to get through that before I got to Misty, just to kind of give an idea of your options up to this point. Not a ton. But at the same time, there's like very obvious choices which ones are better than others. And I think it's something that's important to look at from a game design perspective. Why not have all Pokemon equal? Well, there's a lot of reasons for that. If you had all Pokemon equal, then the only thing that would really be game, like a challenge, would be deciding which super effective move you want to use. If all Pokemon learned strong moves early on, then there would be no point of having like Magikarps, where it's like they learn no moves or very minimal moves early on, and later on they're strong. It's the you put time investment into them, and then they're strong. There is a lot to talk about in this subject. So you have a lot of types. Basically, that's the gist of it. There's a lot of types, but there's not so many Pokemon that you have early on in this game. That's what makes the original Pokemon starter choice so important. If I say chose Squirtle, now that I've seen Bellsprout's moveset and stats, I'm very impressed, and I would actually be more comfortable using Bellsprout than I used to be. I chose Bulbasaur because, well, it's my favorite design for Generation 1, and I've just always used Bulbasaur. And there's fire types and there's water types that I like a lot in this generation. So even though Bellsprout is a good option, or Oddish, I'm sure, Tangela maybe? Paris, possibly. It's the ×4 weakness to, I guess, poison in this game, and fire that makes me want to stay away from Paris. I'll think about it, but because I have Ivysaur, I probably won't do anything with Paris. So, but there's no other water types you can get to this point, except Magikarp, but that doesn't really count. So you're stuck with having either Squirtle or no water types. Which doesn't matter because the first 3 gyms you got Rock Ground, which Bulbasaur does just fine against. You have Water, which water is not very effective against water. And you have Electric, which water is weak to. Once you can finally get a water Pokemon that's not Squirtle, you're not really worried about type effectiveness. I mean, yeah, against water types. There is the Grass Chim, I suppose. But anyway. I don't know where exactly I'm going with this. I just know that it's interesting to look at what Pokemon are. Because as a kid, right, you choose say Jigglypuff and be like, this Pokemon's useless, I can't do anything with it. But you want to use that Pokemon because it's cute. You can't. And it's not until it gets to a certain level that it starts learning moves, and same goes for Magikarp, and I feel like that's just part of the game. You just kind of have to learn which Pokemon are worth using based on what moves they have, what stats they get. And if you want to use the cuter Pokemon, go right ahead. You just might have to put a little bit more effort into them. That's not always true. There are some cute Pokemon that are really powerful. I would say Butterfree is a good example. It's a butterfly, but it's also one of the strongest Pokemon I have right now because it evolves so early. Not to mention Confusion is it's a substantial psychic type move for this early on. I like training my Pokemon, especially if I can fast forward through it, because I have time on my hands, but not all the time in the world. It gets to be overwhelming in later generations, especially later on in this game. It gets very overwhelming. You have like 100 different Pokemon that you need to train in order to evolve them, and it's time consuming. And then figuring out how they evolve is a whole nother issue. But early Generation 1, not a lot of type variety. But you have the grass type, Oddish or Bellsprout, to use against Misty. And Brock is just an endurance battle. And I think that's their way of showing you type effectiveness. I could be wrong. There is the Gary battle, the blue battles, where he will have a variety of Pokemon, most notably his starter, which may end up being super effective against some of your Pokemon. But I think the in-game training you to know about type effectiveness is these first 2 or 3 gym battles. And I think that's important. I think carefully choosing the early gym battles is something it's probably strong in all generations. I can't really say. I will probably determine each generation as I go, but I may get further into this as I get along. The variety of Pokemon that you get, because you don't get a fire type until way later. You don't get a water type until a good little while. I don't think you get any psychic types for a long time. Fighting types take a while. There's just a lot of types that you don't get access to, and generally by the 4th gym, I feel like I have my team set. And if I find new Pokemon that I want to use, I just don't use them because the time sink of training them to get to my level is a little too long. Now, this has been a lot of me just sitting in one position, not doing anything in-game. I just wanted to go over all of that I just went over. Next episode, fighting Misty, gonna kick her butt. Enjoy that. Thank you for watching and sitting through me talking about this. I hope somebody got something out of all this. Yeah, stuff to say later. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.